in terms of, athletes creating that identity that they are an athlete, but they are also somewhat a content creator, somewhat also an entrepreneur. So trying to get them to embody these different identities that can allow them to flourish on the pitch, off the pitch. And I think, that sort of gap in the market kind of mentality of like, specifically focusing on athletes, the creative perspective, the commercial perspective, it's my belief that without the creative, it's harder to access those commercial opportunities. So first and foremost, try as best as possible to make the athlete a good content creator, creating good social media content that can then access, more branded opportunities, more lucrative opportunities, because when they are doing those opportunities for the brands, they're creating good campaigns, good social media content. It's relatable, it's entertaining, it's funny, it's educational. They're sort of ticking all those boxes. So that's my sort of thought process when I speak to people and explain how Press Upload is trying to be a little bit different. Is we are commercially focused, but first and foremost creative focused, because I think you can 10x your commercial opportunities if you nail that creative sort of part of it first and foremost.
Mm. I totally agree with that, and that's where I think when you not only create, I mean, you're working one on one with athletes,
Mm-hmm.
and you're helping them grow their audiences. I'm trying to help them grow their audiences by bringing
Mm-hmm.
people together to fund them, who then have a vested interest in the athlete. But the creative thing's really important. And you mentioned that athletes as entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
that is such an important part of their business now,
Yeah,
and I don't
hugely.
think many athletes think like that from an early enough age.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was trying to really refine the message for what FAYDER was, I went through so many iterations of how I was trying to communicate it. And one thing I kept coming back to was that, athletes are almost like they're founders of their own
Mm-hmm.
company, and
Yeah,
kind of the
absolutely.
acronym that FAYDER is supposed to be fan, players, and together they're founders.
Mm-hmm.
And the language that I was using in creating pitch decks for investment was so similar to how athletes really need to run their business.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't do that without, maybe giving away equity to people that can help them.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, they kind of do that whenever they're paying coaches who don't charge them anything at the start
Mm-hmm.
or charge them very little. Um, but also, what other opportunities can they do? What other verticals can they launch
Mm-hmm.
that help create other revenue streams for their business?
Mm-hmm.
And it's exactly what we talk about with that commercial element to
Mm-hmm.
how they market themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
where money comes from. And I think the traditional way is that a management company will go and do that for you,
Mm-hmm.
but the very few athletes learn how to do it themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and then can go out and do it themselves whenever they're alone, whenever they really need it most, but nobody knows who they are. And I just think that's a really important mentality for
Mm-hmm.
athletes to
Yeah.
start to learn from a very young age, is that your business, and if everything goes the way that you're planning for it to go,
Mm-hmm.
you will be faced with these decisions, hopefully in not too long a time. But the older you get, those bigger opportunities might come along, and
Mm-hmm.
you could probably deal with them in a much more beneficial way for you personally
Mm-hmm.
if you had that education and you were exposed to that
Yeah.
when you were slightly younger as well.
100%.
Um,
It's building an athlete building a social media following and monetizing that following. But traditional content creators do exactly the same thing. They build up a following and they sell digital products or online courses, or they launch collaborations with other brands. Like there's so much scope for athletes to be entrepreneurs and to ultimately build on other businesses of their own business wishes themselves, brands, businesses, ventures, equity stakes in businesses. Like the scale of opportunity is massive if they just embody that mindset of like I'm an athlete, I'm a content creator, and I'm also an entrepreneur at the same time, which can be a lot
yeah,
of identities to kind of come together. And that's where Press Upload ultimately comes in, which is to facilitate that and make that as simple as possible for them to still access those
yeah,
opportunities but not be overwhelmed, because first and foremost their performance on the pitch or the court, that's the priority, but they can also access all these other opportunities. So it's trying to find the balance, but the hope is
yeah,
that we help them find that balance, which is the same as FAYDER, in terms of the balance that athletes are busy. The funding is a huge worry for a lot of athletes, so if that gets sorted for them, they can then switch their attention to just performing in their sport ultimately. So the
yeah.
mental health mindset benefits of having funding and investment is huge.